Let's jump into AI-generated images. And it works in pretty much the same way that we talked about, where your iPhone wants to predict the next word, which is how these GPT models work. Art, or images, wants to generate the next pixel. And it can be really, really beautiful. I'm writing a report right now on sentience and AI. I'm not rushing through it because I've got a list of about 20 other priorities first, which might sound familiar to some of you. This image here was generated as a header for that report. It generated based on my prompt of cute octopus, sentient, colorful Pixar. We'll see the full prompt in a moment. And it generated in less than 10 seconds. And I own the IP for that. Just by typing that prompt, I own that piece of artwork. I want to put this into context for you. We'll spend a little bit of time and then we'll get hands-on again with a different platform. This is Stephen Wiltshire. He's an autistic savant who gets up in helicopters, flies around cities, looks at these cities from different perspectives, comes down and draws what he saw. No one's accusing Stephen of copying. No one's accusing him of photoshopping. No one's accusing him of stealing. He's essentially looking at thousands or hundreds of thousands of different angles of images, of visualizations. He's used his eyes and his brain to reconceptualize what he has seen. Stephen's been up in helicopters above Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, Paris. I believe he's even been here in Sydney. There's a really cool example that we'll show where Stephen tied together all the different skyscrapers that he'd seen, all the different cityscapes that he'd seen, and conceptualized his idea of a completely new cityscape. So in his hundreds of thousands of angles, he's been able to conceptualize and store, almost in his training, what a city should look like. And this is his imaginary skyline. Didn't exist before he drew it. There's nothing photoshopped in there. It's not a montage. He hasn't stolen anything. By way of example, this is exactly how the current crop of AI models work. We call them text-to-image models, but we're not using any buzzwords today. They're incredible. This is the one that really solidified for me my move away from working directly with prodigies and their families to working with AI language models and text-to-image models. This is from Google Party, about not even a year ago, about 9 months ago. Portrait of a gecko wearing a train conductor's hat and holding a flag that has a yin-yang symbol on it, child's crayon drawing. That's the entire prompt. Now the AI model wants to complete that. And it's using its pre-trained, sitting inside thousands of graphics cards for the equivalent of hundreds of years to complete that. While it was training, it trained on about 5 billion images, but it only kept the connections that it drew between pixels, and then it threw out the entire data set. So the only thing it's kept is essentially its synapses, or its neurons. This is what it looked like. It hasn't copy and pasted that yin and yang logo into that flag. It hasn't copied any particular child's drawing. I use the word conceptualized to say that it has essentially thought of what that should look like. It's thought of how to complete that particular prompt, and that's that amazing output. I like it so much, I've now got it embedded in an acrylic cube on my shelf. This is Becky Robbins. She's the former wife of Tony Robbins. She's now very, very famous for her art. She creates these huge canvases, 2 meters by 2 meters-ish, square canvases. They take a year to complete. She sits down, gets some sort of inspiration on images to put on that canvas. She'll research the background of that. If she's been inspired by someone, she'll go and reach out and get clearances to use that inspiration. Then, as you'll see there, she draws it in and then uses oil paints to complete that. These images, after that year-long process, these canvases are sold for $1 million. They're in private collectors' collections, private investors' collections around the world. A lot of artists feel threatened by the concept of AI doing art for them, and I can certainly appreciate that. Becky is one that does not. She's really embraced this. I'm just back from California where I sat with Becky and worked through this text-to-image model, Midjourney, to generate some canvases. This is the first image we came up with together, then everything else was hers. Here's the prompt: anatomical red heart with an intricate gold crown, realistic. We typed that in to this clunky text interface that you'll see in a moment, and the AI model conceptualized this. It's even cooler up close. I mentioned that we're on the bleeding edge today. This is version 4 of the model that I believe came out at the end of last year. We'll play around with version 5 of the model today, which came out in the last few days. It's from March 2023. Here's another few examples. Ishtar, Mesopotamian Louvre, clay figurine, full body tall, and the model wants to complete that with this. Didn't exist before someone typed those words, before Becky typed those words, and once again, she owns the commercial license for this particular piece. Spiral seashell, ribbed turquoise, symmetrical oil painting. That's a cool one. Looks pretty cool as well. Steampunk clock with gears, rust-colored, intricate, bluebird sitting on top of clock. This is the final print. It was sent to her home in California. It's about 2 meters by 2 meters. She's got 20 or 30 images that came out of Midjourney. Since this was delivered to her home, she's now drawn some beautiful line work between those images. And what was once a 1-year-long process is now completed technically in a matter of seconds, 10 seconds per image. Took her a few days to come up with the concepts and to have it generated by artificial intelligence. Isn't that incredible? Blows my mind still. Let's have a little bit of play here. I don't do too much audience interaction, so you can yell it out if you want, but you're welcome to just put it into your head. Was this generated by a human or generated by an artificial intelligence? Few human, few AI. Looks like a wave at Bondi to me, probably a beautiful photo. Not even a photo, soft pastels, chalk. What about this one? You just saw it. Here's the full prompt. I actually used Midjourney version 4 for most of the image. I couldn't get the mouth right, so we did some outpainting in dall-e 2, which maybe we'll use in the webinar, which follows up from this session in a little while. Cute sentient octopus, colorful Pixar was that full prompt. How about this one? You may have seen him on the news. You may have seen this exact image on the news. The Pope in a puffer jacket. Bleeding edge. We don't have the prompt there for that one. Some of these people are protective of the prompts. Absolutely AI. Midjourney version 5 from the last few days, GoPro view of Will Smith wearing a tuxedo, slapping the camera forcefully, Oscars award ceremony. Bit of a mixed feeling on this one. This person does not exist. The prompt was a photorealistic portrait of a woman shot on a Canon 5D. You'll see what's possible now with this photorealism. It's not really my language. I probably couldn't help get into the nitty-gritty of it, but look at stuff like the lighting. Look at the hair detail. You can see how this is going to transform movies in the film industry. It's already transforming the entire art industry, and there's a lot of contention about that. This one's really up to date. I just read a news article about this afternoon.
You're fired.
Midjourney version 5. No prompt on that one. You could do the same thing yourself today, and we will be looking at how you would do that. Take a close look at this one. The veins on the hand, the hairs on the hand, the reflections on the metal on that watch, even the detail in that cuff for those that like watches. It's very, very good at hands and fingers now. It's not perfect with words yet and lettering yet. That'll be the next version. The entire prompt for this one was something like Rolex on wrist photorealistic, and replace Rolex with the actual brand that you want to see. I'm going to wrap up with this example. I mentioned with the Stephen Wiltshire analogy that it has seen 5 billion images, probably more artwork than someone could see in their lifetimes, although that might be a challenge for someone. So it has gone and seen every painting in every art gallery in the world within reason. This one, cat sitting on fence, neon city in distance, intricate details, starry night style of Van Gogh, and it is able to use styles of artists, both big and small artists, depending on what's in that data set. You're welcome to try a version of this yourself. I just showed you Midjourney. There's an open source version called Stable Diffusion. I'm sure you've heard of it. The website here is mage.space. You can use this on any phone. You can just type in that site if you want, mage.space, or you can scan in to take you to there. This one is free. It's always free. There's a couple of different versions. There's a 2.0 version, a 2.1 version. I think there's even anime versions or particular film brand versions. I actually have a lot of fun with this one because, again, you can pull it out at the dinner table. You can pull it out in conversation, and it will conceptualize things that don't exist. By way of example, just before our presentation here, I gave it something silly, and being Perth-based, I thought I would make it local to me. What about Mark McGowan, our famous premier, on top of our BHP building, Brookfield Place, like the one here in Sydney, holding a pint of VB, and it's snowing, just to prove that it's not going to copy and paste this or Photoshop this. These are unique images that have been conceptualized for you based on the prompt. You'll notice that Stable Diffusion at mage.space is not quite as good as Midjourney, especially Midjourney version 5, and that's what I want to play around with today. Here are some of the businesses that are already using it. Do you remember Hot Wheels cars? I had a yellow one when I was a kid, and you could dip a sponge in hot water and then like paint stripes on it or put the sponge over the whole car and it would turn red. This is Mattel using the dall-e 2 model to conceptualize their new designs for Hot Wheels cars. They've already built it into their business process. This is AutoCAD by Autodesk, where you're able to also query dall-e 2 to generate 3D models. This is a company from Germany, Brau Quadrat, who generated their entire line of beer can labels using Midjourney. This is what it looks like. Commercial shot of raspberry, teal background, splashes juicy. Consider how simple that prompt is, and yet they own the commercial IP of this generated image. Midjourney have said, if you wrote the prompt, that's your image. And they have wrapped their entire line, generated their packaging, branding, to a certain extent their marketing, by typing in, what is that, 10 words? Not even. Some people are getting a little bit silly with it. This guy entered his AI-generated artwork into the Colorado State Fair. He won $750 and told them, yeah, I just typed that prompt in. It's actually beautiful. Here it is close up, again by Midjourney. And you will have seen it on the covers of magazines. The Economist featured Midjourney nearly a year ago, and Cosmo featured dall-e 2 also around that time, just to show what's possible with these models. Time magazine, of course, around this time last month, said that ChatGPT is so famous it'll make the cover of their magazine as well. Here's Adobe Photoshop, the next iteration. So this pilot is just for showing what is possible, but this is within the Photoshop application. Every image that you're seeing here is being generated by their version of the AI. Kind of makes expressing what's happening here a bit challenging, because although we're in Photoshop, no photoshopping is involved. It's generating, conceptualizing new images from scratch. These images didn't exist before the person typed in that particular prompt. Big commercial applications, big business applications for this. Like I mentioned, I use it now for my report title headers. Some of my website has header images generated by Midjourney or dall-e as well. It's really quite beautiful. I don't want to give anyone PTSD. I bet you remember this. 2001-ish, Windows XP. It's a real photo. Microsoft said if we used our proprietary text-to-image model, Newer Infinity, and asked it to draw out how wide that would be, I wonder what that would look like. So they allowed it to think 27,000 pixels wide. They fed it the original photo, and then it kept thinking. So from about this point forward, every cloud that you're seeing, every blade of grass, every rock, all of those features have been conceptualized by AI, did not exist before it thought to continue it. I know this is really confronting for those that have not played around with it, or for those that are getting into AI in detail. I can appreciate that you may need a breather. Completely understandable. We're just about to jump into generating AI art ourselves. Consider how you might use this for your own reports, for your own web design. I've used this with clients for assets, very specific 3D almost assets that sit within their proprietary platform. It's a really interesting application, and it's far more visible, of course, than something like ChatGPT. Even though text to me is more interesting, sitting down and showing someone a generation is always interesting. How many people here have been to the Louvre? Wow, Sydney, come on. I'm led to believe, I have not been to see the Mona Lisa, I'm led to believe it's quite small, like A3 size. Circa 1500s by Leonardo da Vinci. We could do anything with this. With certain models, we could feed it to it and say, generate this for me with Sydney in the background, or make her a different gender, or the list goes on. It's really up to your imagination, which was what makes AI so exciting for me. All I wanted here was to say, what would happen if we could see past that A3 and just draw out that canvas? So the generation here, or the prompt, sorry, was Mona Lisa uncropped. And this particular model, OpenAI's dall-e, thought of this. Let's jump in, guys. lifearchitect.ai/art. We're going to be using Midjourney version 5, and I apologize in advance because the interface is about as ugly as you can get. We're going to midjourney.com, we're going to discord.com, setting up a couple of accounts, and then we're inside Discord which is like a nasty version of the old IRC from back in the 90s. All right, here we are, lifearchitect.ai/art. I considered using dall-e 2 today, which gives us access to scrubbing parts out of an image and having AI fill in that image. I've also used it for photos that aren't the right resolution and had it paint out the edges, like the bottom if it's bushland or a footpath, or more of the sky if I want it to fit it into a particular rectangle. This one I think is going to be the most interesting. It's the current state of the art. It generated most of the art that we just saw in the human versus AI art. It's only been out for a number of days. There is an option to do this for free. Anything that you do inside the free plan is visible to the public. The paid plan, there's a paid plan that is basic there at about US $10 a month. But we'll start out here with a Discord account, discord.com, and then a new midjourney.com account. I see we've got a bunch of people who are already working ahead and have already made their way into Midjourney. This is actually really simple to use. It's just particularly ugly. The irony that we're generating the most beautiful artwork possible in a text interface. Having trouble logging onto this one as well? Yeah? Is it rate limited again? Okay. Apologies for our bandwidth or IP or quota issues today. There will be a webinar after this in a few weeks where we can jump in and play with it again if you'd like. The steps exist online at any time for you to play around with. I'm going to once again invite you to help me out with some generations today, and I'll show you some of the examples that I've had there over the last few days that I've used directly. Let's assume that the first two steps there are completed. A new Discord account, well, you may have one. A new Midjourney account. Don't have to give your credit card, but the $10 plan lets you have private conversations with the bot, and your generations are more private. All right, I'm going to take you to Discord here. Over on the left-hand side, you can see my Midjourney bot, direct messages with the Midjourney bot. We're going to be doing everything in here for those that have a paid plan. If you are just jumping in with a free plan, you can find a newbies channel, any numbered newbies channel, and we'll do exactly the same thing. It's just that all your generations will be available for everyone to see. Any questions so far? Awesome. You may be able to see there my latest generation, or an upscale of a generation. Let me scroll up and find an example here. The entire prompt that you can see here is colorful hero header image for a new intergovernmental organization. And then we've got a couple of nerdy flags at the end that allow us to be using the latest version and also to have it at a widescreen resolution. The default will be square and the default model will be version 4. Here's how we interact with this model. We type in /imagine, and I'm just going to click on the pop-up here, /imagine, and it will fill in that prompt for us. We can type in anything here. I'm going to type in, let's see how it will go. Go and raise K2 conference at the Sofitel. I'm going to leave it like that. Now, I believe, and I have to get this exact, I believe it's --V space 5, and if I want it widescreen, space dash dash aspect 3:2. Apologies for the nerd stuff. It's just telling us version 5 and make it kind of widescreen. Let's allow it to go and think of this prompt. Kerwin Rae's K2 conference at the Sofitel, use the latest version of the model, use a widescreen version. I'll just jump, while that's thinking, I'll just jump into AI art to allow you to see that we can copy and paste that out exactly. I might copy and paste this one for a demonstration. Now this model goes out and thinks about what that should look like, and you get to see it thinking and diffusing, having different versions of this and filling out what that should finally look like. You'll get 4 examples. We number them horizontally. Number 1, top left. Number 2, top right. Number 3, bottom left. Number 4, bottom right. We'll use that in a moment to upscale it. It'll show the percentage that it's complete. It's at 93% right now, and we're just about to have this one finish. Sometimes this is a lot faster, and it can even be a little bit slower depending on who is around. All right, here's our final example. If I click on it, it will open that up in Discord, but I'm going to open this up in the browser and zoom this in for you guys. You'll see that it has conceptualized a conference. We haven't given enough detail about today to even imagine what we would look like in this room, but here are some examples that it's come up with for a concept of this particular event. Looks like it's in China. We can upscale any of these by choosing upscale number 1 through to upscale number 4. This is going to give us the highest resolution that we could then actually go and print like Becky did. I've got colleagues around Australia that have created their own artwork, printed it out, and then stuck it on their wall, and there's nothing stopping you from doing the same. We've got a question up the back here.
Just a question, sorry, Tracy. Just a question in relation to the images and copyright. Does it actually stop if it's going to copyright someone's brand, or does it actually prevent that, or does it still allow you to technically take that brand and twist it? Like if I went, I want something in Coca-Cola and brought it in, does it actually stop you?
No, it will not stop you. This is a very open model. We'll try this example out. Thanks so much, Tracy. It has seen, like the savant, autistic savant, Stephen Wiltshire, it's seen 5 billion images, and it's not going to stop using any of the images that it's seen as inspiration. It doesn't have the Coke logo inside its brain, but it has seen that during its training, and it can conceptualize something new based on that. It may be very, very, very accurate, and almost will be an IP issue, but let's try that one out. I'm going to type /imagine and allow it to create a prompt for me to fill in here. Let's just allow it to do a square one. I've just typed in Coca-Cola branding space dash dash V space 5. Some of the bleeding edge stuff here is still a little bit nerdy, but it will be removed, and it will be frictionless as we progress. I have done some analysis on where this training data came from, and you will see that at lifearchitect.ai/art, which is where we're getting these steps. I'll allow this to generate. I'll scroll down a little bit here, and we'll see for mage.space, which uses stable diffusion, it's generating from seeing images through these top 10 domains. Now, that definitely does not mean it has those data sets right now. It just means it's gone and seen billions of images from Pinterest and from stock photos and from Wikimedia. All right, here's our generation of Coca-Cola branding. Still not great with words, although that one's pretty good. That bottom left one. So it will be something that you need to consider if you're touching on even an artist's style, in the style of one of our Sydney artists, Charles Billich, for example, or one of the old masters, and certainly touching on someone else's branding, it's a consideration. But you'll see the conceptualization of this. None of these at the bottom seem to exist. They seem to be their own thing, and we may have, in our training, in our memory, have access to what a can looks like and what a bottle looks like. All right, let's hand over to the room. What would you like it to imagine for today? What would be useful to you in a business context or a fun context, I don't mind, that you want to play around with, and we'll put it up on the screen here. We've got one down the front here. Remember, you could use this for branding and marketing. You could use it for documents. You could use it for logos. I've seen a few businesses that have generated their logo using Midjourney. For any stock photography placeholders that you would have normally used, you can go and generate something unique. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Jez, and I was just thinking, like a lot of us have businesses, but we build our businesses up here in this group, and then we open the next business, and we're always looking for the next logo. So we go to a digital marketing place and we go, here's a heap of money, can you produce me a logo? So logos are I was thinking, I come from an industry where it's definitely not a normal, like construction or plumbing or something like that. How we produce the next logo in our business, or we refine the logo that we already have. So if you were to type in my business's logo, could it generate something up the logo? Because you see that Apple and Woolworths and Coles are always upping their logo, getting with the trends.
Yeah, do a new version, spend a few million on branding and marketing every few years.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So today, using Midjourney, we're not able to feed it an image and then have it iterate on that, or at least not in the interface that I've got here. We can do that with Stable Diffusion very easily. We can do that with dall-e 2 more easily. These ones are going to be more from scratch. If your logo exists in the data set, it can kind of look at that, and you could even say, give it influences from the latest logos, or make it 2023, even though its data set ended a while ago, it'll kind of make it futuristic. But for this particular platform, we're not able to play around with an existing image. We will do that in the webinar. We'll play around with existing images and get it to do different versions. I'd like to answer your question with a demonstration, though, before we jump on. What might be a demonstration of a logo that you'd like to see it do? And you can make it up if you like.
Well, I have a rope access business, so
Great.
We hang off structures all over Australia, so go for gold.
That's awesome. Let's try something really simple. Rope access business logo. With or without the term business might give us different results, but let's keep it really simple. You can get very, 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 very long prompts. While this is waiting, I'll go back to lifearchitect.ai/art. Down the bottom here is the longest prompt I've come across. It just keeps going. Some of that might essentially be ignored while it's trying to generate, but this particular very long prompt, which I think had some help from GPT-4 or ChatGPT, gave us this beautiful image here. So sometimes using very long prompts backed by AI helping us come out with terms for the prompt can be beneficial. I'll let this generation finish here. Rope access business logo. We're using version 5. We've got some interesting examples, but none that I'd use here. I'm going to change it up slightly. Rope access business. You can use commas in here. Modern and futuristic flat UI. And I'll end with the word logo there. It used to be that the last word in the prompt would have more importance placed on it, but given how quickly these models are changing, I can't even tell you if that's still the case. There are also models where you get a little bit nerdy with putting emphasis on particular words using particular symbols. This one might be a little bit more interesting. Rope access business, modern and futuristic flat UI, which is a buzzword for flat user interface, and we're reminding it that it's a logo. You could get as specific as you'd like here. You can make it a particular color. You can make it align with a particular texture or even way of coming up with that concept, and it will follow what you've told it. These are certainly interesting. It's taken it very literally here. Here are our four examples for rope access logo. And I will come back to your question in the webinar to see what we can do. Thank you. We had this next one here with Red Hat.
Yeah, g'day, I'm Dave.
Dave.
I was wondering if we could redo the K2 logo with Poppadom. Do you know what Poppadom is? It's the toy up in the top corner there. I don't know what it is, Kerwin. It's a blue elephant.
No, I don't know about this. You'll have to educate me on this one. Is this tying together two existing images, is it? Cool. I think we'll leave this for the webinar because the Midjourney one, in my experience, is just new images, but there are models, like I mentioned, Stable Diffusion in particular, where you can send it two different images and have it blend things together. Might even be with Midjourney. I'm just not set up to do that today, so we might try that in the webinar.
I do have one other question.
Cool.
You say that the iPhone corrects the word. How come it always corrects it to duck when I want to write fuck? Can they not get that shit right with all this technology or not?
I do have a solution to that, Dave, and I've implemented it myself. If you add a contact named fuck, and you can make that as long as you like, you're all sorted. It knows that that word exists, so it'll put it in for you. Go ahead with the yellow hat here.
Hi, sorry, Tracy again. I've just got my lawyer hat on and I'm freaking out a little bit. So, apologise. If we generate a brand or a logo and it's using other brands to pull off, how do we not know that you haven't hijacked somebody else's brand inadvertently? Is there anything in there that stops that?
There is nothing that will give you that indication. Like if you've used a not so trustworthy human graphic designer who's taken inspiration and maybe a little bit more than inspiration, it's certainly something to be wary of. I do a lot of work with legal. I was really happy to hear our Singaporean mention Harvey AI, which is bleeding edge GPT-4. It's being used by massive companies here in Australia, including DLA Piper here. It's very interesting. There are IP considerations with everything that you do here, and in particular with this model, where they don't have any safety or alignment on top of it, you can output things that have been inspired by other things. Great question, Tracy.
That's scary.
It's scary. It's confronting for sure. Yep. All right, someone flagged me for Zoom.
There's Michael Gannon on Zoom.
Oh, fantastic. Let's go, Michael.
How are we going?
I'm having a blast up here. It's been great.
A little bit of FOMO missing out on Sydney, but that's okay. We run a kitchen design business, and really interesting listening to this. Just interested whether things like being able to plug in measurements of rooms and features to create a kitchen, but with specific measurements, is sort of there's the ability yet, or in near future?
Thanks for your question, Michael. Right now, there is the ability to have inspiration for things like kitchens and kitchen design. To get it to a level of detail where you're within, a millimeter resolution is not quite possible yet. So while it has been tied into CAD and you can play around with CAD, I wouldn't be relying on it for any kind of building stuff just yet. We can try this out. I've seen such amazing examples of people who have generated floor plans, and let's see if I can emulate them. Floor plan of futuristic kitchen. Of course, you could generate a 3D model of this, or you could have a still image of a walkthrough. I'm going to try and see if we can get this top down in a square. So last year, I would have told you that it's not yet possible to generate diagrams, that it's not yet possible to have photorealistic, and that has changed already in March 2023, when I tell you that it's not yet possible to have intricate measurements of physical spaces. Come back and see me in even a month or two with these new versions. Our generation here is at 46% for floor plan of futuristic kitchen. And this is a top-down, looks like it's done it in a couple of different colors. Looks like there's a blueprint that's being diffused down there in the bottom right. And we'll pop this up in a moment. Then we'll ask your opinion, Michael, so stick around for us. 93%, you can see it just diffusing there for its last step. I'll open this up in the browser and we'll zoom in on the top part first. I believe these resolutions are 1024 pixels square. I could be wrong there. And once we upscale, it may get even higher. I mentioned Mattel, and I mentioned some other companies that are using it for inspiration, including Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola have just hooked up via Bain Consulting with OpenAI, and they're using dall-e 2 for inspiration for their products, for their marketing. This one on the lower left looks amazing, so I'm going to ask it to upscale number 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, Michael, this would be a very niche field and it's outside of my purview, but you could ask it to do a blueprint, or you could ask it to do something very specific to your business to make this fit into what you want it to output. This, as a first generation of a very simple prompt, floor plan of futuristic kitchen, is kind of interesting to me, giving some ideas of what a round kitchen might look like. And just with those 4 words, it's a pretty interesting output. Do you want to feedback on that one, Michael? Is that helpful in any way? Don't use this for measurements.
There we go. Yeah, no, very interesting. I've had a little bit of a play with it. And yeah, we use other 3D design programs, so great for concept for that. I'm very interested when it gets to a point where we can plug in 3-meter wall, 2-meter window, and that sort of stuff.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you saw the Autodesk AutoCAD pilot earlier. This is on its way there, but even in your example, we can get much more specific with this. You're welcome to help me out with the prompt if you like. And we'll make this use version 5. Just in terms of sizing, we've made this a bit of a rectangle, and we'll see what it comes up with. Anything you want to add there, Michael, with your niche?
U-shaped kitchen.
Sorry?
U-shaped kitchen.
Is that good enough?
Sounds good.
Let's see what it comes up with. We did have another question down the back while we're waiting for that generation. Should be a few seconds. All right, let's see how it's going. 3-meter by 2-meter U-shaped kitchen design, top-down blueprint. We're using the latest version. It's got me on a little pause for some reason, but here it comes. Diffusing 4 designs for us, and we can upscale any of these to play around with them. I love the fact that this is really only limited by your imagination. There have been concepts that I've seen that I wouldn't have even envisaged, and yet they're real life for people. They're using them in crazy places to me, but they make a lot of sense to them. All right, here's our U-shaped kitchen design top down. I'll open this in the browser. This is the top two. You'll see it's tried to give measurements on the left-hand side there. I wouldn't be relying on those, but you'll see some numbers and some line drawings, or some lines. And down the bottom here, this bottom two, it's also tried to come up with something. Is that a toilet in the kitchen on the bottom right? Awesome. Thanks again for your question, Michael. Do we have one here with the white hat?
Hi, I'm Deborah.
Deborah?
I'm going to be starting a new arm of my business, which is going to teach people how to listen to horses. So I'm looking at logo ideas for that, where I'd sort of like a human ear with the horse, but without it being kitsch.
I love that. Fantastic. So you said listen to horses, not whisper to horses, right? Wow. All these different niches. Let's try it out. Let's get just a tiny bit fancy here, and let's ask ChatGPT to help us out with, or let's ask GPT-4 to help us out with the prompt. You may not have access to GPT-4 in the ChatGPT interface, but you can ask for it. It's 10 times more expensive, or even more than that, sorry. It's 30 times more expensive. It's 6 cents versus 0.2 of a cent. But if I ask it, generate a prompt for a text to image model for, yeah, let's keep that, a new business logo for listening to horses. Do you think I've missed anything there, Deborah? That's pretty good. We could get more specific with that. We could make it a round logo. We could make it a colorful logo. We could have a human in the logo. But let's just see it help us out with a prompt there. That's not a prompt. Clearly, I haven't tried this before. This one does not actually do what I want it to do. I wonder if there's a way to get it to do what I want to do by asking it to generate a prompt that existed in September 2021 and before. Because now that I think about it, Midjourney probably didn't exist then. dall-e might have existed. No. All right. We'll put that one on pause, and I'll give you a new version of that in our webinar. Here's our prompt, a new business logo for listening to horses. We would get very different results just by changing little words there. You might even want to drop the words a new business from the top of that and just make it logo for listening to horses. Or logo for listening to horses inspired by Fortune 500 logos. Or logo for listening to horses using gradients. There is a lot of creativity that exists in playing around with these. Here's our generation. It hasn't got the ears for you, Deborah, which should be making you happy. These horses don't exist. They haven't been photoshopped. They haven't come directly from data sets. Again, they've come from it conceptualizing based on the billions of images that it's seen. Midjourney is still not good at text, so you'd have to scrub that out, and you can use dall-e 2 very easily to scrub that text out, and you could either write it in yourself or have another model come up with some beautiful lettering for you. Because these are just horses, let's see if we can get something a little bit different. I'm typing in /imagine and having our prompt here. Business logo for listening to horses, human-centered. let's have some gradient in here. And let's use the latest version again. If you didn't put that --v space 5 at the end, you'd get version 4, which is actually really nice as well. So you can use both of those models and drop off that flag at the end, those dashes, to use version 5. It's conceptualizing a business logo for listening to horses, human-centered, gradient colors. It's very bright. And we're at 46% here. Oh, that's amazing. You can see this one popping up. I can see some AirPods Max going on. You can see that there's no prescriptive way of doing this. I wouldn't stand up here and instruct on the best way to do things because we're still finding out how to use these models. Here's our top 2 for listening to horses, and our bottom 2. Very abstract at the bottom right there. Excellent. We're going to wrap up there, guys. You've had access to the very latest models, GPT-4 coming out just a few days ago, Midjourney version 5 coming out a few days ago as well, somewhere around March the 14th for both of those models. And it may be that next year, we're not talking about either of them because there's something even bigger and better. Right now, this is the best available, and I'd strongly recommend you play with it yourself. You don't need any particular expertise for this one, just an imagination, maybe a little bit of time to come up with the concept that you want it to think of. But these are smart enough now to be able to do some really, really outrageous things. There's a whole lot of information at lifearchitect.ai. One of them I just wanted to flag before we wrap up is the smarts on this very, very recent model. They ran it across tests that were only written after this model was trained. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. And GPT-4 sitting the SAT is in the 90th percentile. GPT-4 sitting an economics exam in the getting 66%. That one's not a percentile. But have a look at what it's able to achieve in these very specialist fields, including biology, the Bio-Olympiad, which is very famous in America. And there's kind of a funny one there, about halfway down, wine tasting. If you've seen the documentary Somm, it was able to pass theory of wine tasting at the advanced level. 77% compared to a very, very high failure rate for that exam. I really appreciate your focus, guys. I hope you had fun being hands-on with us. I did. And there will be a webinar coming up where we can look at some more recent things and hopefully answer some of the questions that we were not able to with some limitations of people being able to log in. All the steps are available, lifearchitect.ai/sheets for the text, lifearchitect.ai/art for the art. Thanks again. I really appreciate you guys being around today.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Alan D. Thompson.